Good morning. It's 8:30. I'd like to call the Brookings County Commission meeting to order on Tuesday, April 20th, 2021, with the Pledge of Allegiance. We have an invitation for a citizen to schedule time on the commission agenda for an item not listed. Is there anybody here that would like to? Hearing none, we'll move on to approval of agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any additions or corrections? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Pierce. Bartley.
Aye.
Krogman.
Aye.
Boersma.
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item 5, consent agenda items.
I do have several additions to the consent agenda. I have, there are 2 additional personnel action notices. One, I know Commissioner Boersma hasn't been able to see this. One is for the hire of a part-time male correctional officer, and then the other is for the other new appraiser in the equalization office. And then there was kind of just I think more of a correction to the human services report. I think there was some old reference numbers and information kind of on the bottom of the one that was in your packet. So the one that was handed out this morning is the correct one with just the one item noted on it, 21-041.
Okay, those additions, we have the approval of the minutes, approval of travel requests, approval of personnel action notices, approval of cellular authorizations, and approval of the human services report. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Bartley.
Aye.
Krogman.
Aye.
Boersma.
Aye.
Pierce.
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Moving on to item number 6, routine of business, approval of the claims. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any additions, corrections? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Krogman.
Aye.
Boersma.
Aye.
Pierce.
Aye.
Bartley.
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item B, department head reports. We'll start with Brian of the Highway Department.
Morning.
Morning.
Just wanted to remind the commission that as of April 5th, the load limits were off. I've gotten a few phone calls from quite a few individuals, I suppose, getting ready to farm and whatnot, but they are off. Another thing that I've been noticing around the county is as these dairies and hogs units start pumping out their manure, that I'd like to remind them that they only cross our right-of-ways in the permitted locations, and pump lines need to be outside the right-of-way until lines traverse through the permitted crossing. So far, it's been so good that I haven't seen too much that's been an infraction, but those individuals have been spoken with. And April 7th, pre-con meeting, City of Elkton and SPN and Associates in regard to the water and sewer project. Got a map attached there for our truck detour, and then when that work comes here, it sounds like maybe late May or June, that that estimated time that they would be in construction on our Brookings County 33 would be up to 3 months. And when that comes, I'll inform the commission when that's closed, and also the emergency services. The soil boring crews continue to take initial soil borings at the structure we recently received grants for. 413, the Bruce Bridge, they've made it across the river, and now, Stacy, could you pull up those pictures? The remainder of the work that they have to do. That's the detour outline there for you guys'
Keep going.
information. And then they got the span across the river set, and then the rest of their work will be outside the river channel. So we're moving along, right along quite nice there. So just a few pictures to give you guys an update on what's going on out there. 413 had a pre-con meeting for those right-of-way agreements from Valley Telecommunications, and it looks like those the work that's going to happen in Brookings County will be that June-July timeline, and they're supposed to notify me when they're coming to town. April 13th, I had a bid opening for our 2021 asphalt project and asphalt patching. 414, met with the City of Volga officials and Larry and Stacy in regards to the RFPs for Samara Avenue. And 415 had a pre-construction meeting and regards to our Brookings County 23 pavement rehabilitation project. And I'm gonna we're gonna hold a public meeting in Aurora at the Little Hall at 6 p.m. tomorrow night. So if anybody's interested in coming to that, so we can answer the questions to the businesses and the locals there, and advertise that in the paper and put it up on the Facebook page. And I also asked the radio to help get the word out. And April 16th, I completed the NACO High Performance Leadership Academy courses.
Any questions?
No, but thank you for the pictures. That was nice.
How would you rate the NACO High Performance Academy?
It was good. I learned a lot. You know, trying to make my communication better. That's a lot of what they focused on there, and trying not to make things more than a page long, but sometimes that's hard when we get busy like this. But it's nice to be getting back to work and not having to worry about the water.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. Dustin?
Morning. Attendance like I usually do since April 6th. Through the gun range, we had 83, and archery range, we had 91 for our public hours. For our events, we did 2 private events in our classroom. 4-H shooting sports, as of last weekend, they wrapped up in the facility. This weekend, they go to their state shoot. And then I believe the next weekend, May 1st and 2nd, they're just checking a few things back in. But other than that, I believe they're done. Beacon Hill had 2 meetings. They did their monthly meeting, and then last week they had their annual meeting for the year where they handed out their memberships and everything. And we had about 40 people, so we had to set them up in the archery range. On the 8th, we finished up our Las Vegas shoot. Overall, we had about 18 people attend. Midwest Maidens were in there twice. We did an enhanced renewal class on the 12th. April 13th, we had our PRC meeting. Our pistol range, kind of in-house, I call it. We're talking about new lights in the gun range and some sound abatement issues. Boy Scout troop came in and they shot a little archery. Big Sioux Bowman had their year-end meeting. We did an enhanced concealed carry on the 18th. JOAD is about halfway through their spring session for the year, and then they go into the summer where everybody kind of goes outside and they start shooting archery outside. May 1st, we are Big Sioux JOAD and the BCOAC, we're trying to put on an archery shoot. It's an open 300, 360. We're inviting other communities. We've had interest from Rapid City clubs, Minnesota, people talking about it, but we're trying to get something in the facility and hopefully make this a yearly event. We're doing some maintenance on the buttresses. We got 2 TVs in there where we're trying to do some scoring. We ran some cords to get those to work. They've had a wireless system that hasn't always worked and kind of been faulty, so we ran a hard line. We're just updating a few things in there to make it aesthetically look good for the kind of the first one we do to make a name for ourselves. They're going to do concessions and door prizes and try to do everything. We're going to do another RSO class this Saturday, the 24th, to try to get a few more volunteers in the gun range. There's 3 employees that need to go through it, the part-timers. Just been working on the budget to present that to the board on the 26th, kind of a first draft. And then I met with an electrician for a few issues we got around the building, and then some LEDs, try to get a quote for the gun range. Other than that, that's it. If you guys had any questions for me at all.
Hearing
All right,
none?
thank you.
Thank you. Mike?
Good morning.
Morning.
I did turn in my resignation for June 18th. I'm doing that, part of it is the retirement system is changing somewhat, and my family's kind of asked me to get a little more involved with my daughter's house and my son. So I've got a few things going on, so I figured it was probably about time. I've really enjoyed my job here. I appreciate you guys allowing me to work here. I thank the people that from Brookings County for giving me this opportunity, and I appreciate that. Now, for my report, I just want to talk real quickly about the Housing Board. We did not have enough for a quorum this last meeting. There are 2 members that have shown up only like twice in 2 years, and I think that's probably something that should be addressed as far as getting those 2 individuals. They were showing a lot of interest when we put it out there again. I think that maybe we could find some people that would be willing to show up for the board. Maybe I'll go out and reach out to them and contact them, say, you know, we need to have you guys show up. This is what it is. You volunteer for a board. You really should follow up on what you volunteer on. And I understand it's a volunteer board, but still, we need to have those people there. Dan, one of our newest members, did show up, and we had actually a very good time sitting down and talking to him and explaining to him that Section 8 housing is not temporary housing. Section 8 housing is an immediate housing. Section 8 housing, very similar to Habitat, which he works for, is a long-term solution. And so it is not instantaneous. Some of the problems that are looked at, of course, would be some kind of a shelter, you know, in Brookings. And I said that, as far as I can see, I don't see the commissioners being on board with building a homeless shelter here in Brookings or taking one on. At this time anyway, but, sorry. But I guess that would be more of a question that for you people. And, you know, I just don't know at this point what that would be. Salvation Army does do 2 week, but like some of the similar communities our size, you know, if you come here, we're not going to necessarily house you free of charge for 3-4 months. You know. Anyway, that's my opinion, and that's kind of what I put out to them. Okay, that's all I got.
Any questions? Thanks, Mike. Misty?
Good morning. I'll start off with the good news. Mike Andreessen and I will be going on Thursday to Mitchell, South Dakota to get the mosquito misters calibrated. There will be no class time, but it's just they're congregating in one area to get every county on the east side, their mosquito foggers calibrated. So that'll be at least a half a day, if not 8-hour day for us. So Thursday, Mike and I will be in Mitchell. And we do this every year because if we have a pandemic with the mosquitoes, we at least are ready, because you have to get your mosquito foggers calibrated yearly, just like we do with our spray equipment. DOT bid, we were outbid. So we do not have the DOT right-of-ways this year to spray. I can give you the numbers. Brookings County, we bid $24,870. DBI bid $21,980. I believe we are the only county that they received the bid on. And this company is out of Albert Lee, Minnesota. That's all I have for you today. I just wanted to let you know, maybe I should explain this. I kind of take this to heart because we've been working so hard on county roads, state roads, township roads to keep weeds under control, and I hope that will continue with this new company, and hopefully we get it next year.
How will that, how will that affect your budget for staff time this summer?
We've got plenty of work to do. We can go behind where the highway had cut trees and paint them stumps with some Tordon. That way the trees don't grow up in the right-of-ways again. I had talked to Jeff. Brian was there this morning too. And we can do that. In July, we'll be able to take the mowers out. We'll also be able to go out with weed eaters. We'll have a lot more time to spend on county roads, townships that are contracted with us to spray their township. It'll be a lot smoother ride for us. We'll have plenty of work. It's not that someone's going to be standing around going, "What am I doing today?" We'll have plenty.
So was the $24,000 in your budget for income?
Yes.
So how are you going to handle that?
I'm not understanding.
Well, you're going to be $24,000 short on your budget. So
I don't know. I didn't even think about that yet.
I would assume you'd have less chemical expense.
We will. We'll have a lot less chemical.
This may affect your shortage of chemical
Yes.
products. And
Yes, I did try to get a hold of Tom this morning also. Speaking of that, he has not given me a call back. I tried to get a hold of him yesterday. I just don't know if he's busy or if he's on vacation. I'm not sure. But I'm waiting for a phone call from him to see where we're at chemical-wise. We will be saving money on chemical. So I think with our $24,000 we had bid, depending on what chemical we were using, how much chemical we were using. When we did bid the DOT, it's Tordon 2,4-D, and the Tordon was $9,900 per 250-gallon tote. So we'll be saving that money, and I would say we may be saving the whole year now, not just the spring run, but for the whole year. I would say we'd be saving 3 250-gallon totes, and this is just a guess. But I think we'll be okay. I don't think we're going to go over or under. I think it'll pretty much even out. Does that answer your question, Leanne?
The
Yes.
DOT took bids. Have they awarded those bids, though?
They did.
They did award them.
They did award it to DBI.
Okay.
I'm just suggesting maybe you take a look at, because you said you hadn't looked at the budget consequences yet, maybe take a look at that and see where you're going to be for your department.
Yep, and I'm working on budgets this week, so I will definitely do that.
But that's next year's budget.
That's next
so
year's,
we're
but
talking
while
about
I'm
this-
looking at next year's, that's something I can do while I'm looking at next year's. Otherwise, I do not have anything else.
Any other questions? Okay,
Thank-
thank you. No other, we have a finance officer's report?
Yep, Lori is not here today. If you had any questions on the finance officer's report, I can sure try to answer them, but the be it noted items, the auditor's account with the treasurer, payroll additives and totals, highway expenditure report, and the register of deeds statement of fees were all included in that. Otherwise, I don't think she really had anything out of the ordinary to report, is what she told me yesterday, but if you had any questions, I can sure try to answer them.
Any questions? Okay, we do have a scheduled 9 o'clock. We'll move on to regular business. Item A, first reading. Ordinance 21-02, an ordinance authorizing rezoning of northeast quarter, except lot H1 and except that part lying east and north of lot H1 in section 14. Read the ordinance 2021-02, an ordinance authorizing rezoning of northeast quarter, except lot H1 and except that part lying east and north of Lot H1 in Section 14, Township 109 North, Range 50 West, Madari Township. Whereas COD Investments LLC by David Knight made an application to Brookings County Zoning Board to rezone property from joint jurisdiction agricultural and R-1B agricultural and residence single-family district to joint jurisdiction B3 heavy business district. Whereas the Brookings County Planning Commission recommended approval to rezone the property on April 6, 2021. Whereas South Dakota Codified Law 11-2-30 requires the Brookings County Commission to adopt or reject the change. Therefore, it be ordained by Brookings County, South Dakota, in accordance with Section 800 of Article 8 of Appendix C, Joint Jurisdiction Area Zoning Ordinance of the City of Brookings and the County of Brookings, South Dakota, that the following property be rezoned from joint jurisdiction agricultural and R1B agricultural and residence single-family district to joint jurisdiction B3 heavy business district. Northeast quarter, except Lot H1 and except that part lying east and north of Lot H1 in Section 14, Township 109 North, Range 50 West, Madari Township. The second reading will be May 18th at 9 a.m. Is that all we need on there? Okay, moving on to item B. Action approve a resolution number 21-18, a plat of lot 58A of the first edition of Lake Ponts at Heights subdivision in Lot 2, Section 5, Township 112 North, Range 52 West of the 5th Prime Meridian, Brookings County, South Dakota. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All these plats were approved unanimously at the county zoning board,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Bob was not able to be here today. So, any other comments? Call the roll, please.
Boersma,
Aye.
Pierce,
Aye.
Bartley,
Aye.
Krogman,
Aye.
Jensen,
Aye.
motion carries.
Item C, action approve resolution number 21-19, a plat of tract 1 of Hanson Addition in the northwest quarter, except lot H1 and H2 of section 20 Township 110 North, Range 49 West of the 5th Prime Meridian, Brookings County, South Dakota. Do I have a motion to approve?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, call roll.
Pierce,
Aye.
Bartley,
Aye.
Krogman,
Aye.
Boersma,
Aye.
Jensen,
Aye.
motion carries.
Item D, action approve resolution number 21-20, a plat of lots 2A, 3A, and 5A, Block 2, Sunset Point Addition and Government Lots 3 and 4 of Section 22, Township 112 North, Range 47 West of the 5th Principal Meridian, in Brookings County, South Dakota. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
A motion second. Any comments? Hearing none, call roll.
Bartley,
Aye.
Krogman,
Aye.
Boersma,
Aye.
Pierce,
Aye.
Jensen,
Aye.
motion carries.
Item E, action to approve agreement number 21-57, Exhibit E, Amendment 1 to the 2020 Local Emergency Management Performance Grant Sub-Recipient Agreement. Do I have a motion to approve?
Second.
I have a motion second. Any comments here?
Bob had just explained that this is the amendment to that agreement for the purchase of some sandbags, and then it's a 50-50 cost share, and they're going to be reimbursing the county $57.30 for the sandbags, is essentially what this was for.
Okay. We call the roll, please.
Krogman,
Aye.
Boersma,
Aye.
Pierce,
Aye.
Bartley,
Aye.
Jensen,
Aye.
motion carries.
Item F, action to approve agreement number 21-58, an agreement between the County of Brookings and the City of Brookings, South Dakota, and AVI Systems regarding an audio, video, and supporting equipment review, inventory, condition assessment, and a 10-year capital improvement plan. We have a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments?
This was approved at budget time with the Joint Powers Board for this building to go out and get RFPs to do this work, the audio video review, and then an inventory, and then provide a 10-year capital improvement plan for that equipment. And it's the shared equipment. So this room, the community room, the exec session room, we did put out RFPs along with the city and received a couple of those back. And this is the firm that I would recommend going with. This is the same company that did the upgrades over at the courthouse at the end of last year, if you recall.
Any other questions? Hearing none, call the roll.
Boersma,
Aye.
Pierce,
Aye.
Bartley,
Aye.
Krogman,
Aye.
Jensen,
Aye.
motion carries.
Item G, action to approve agreement number 21-59 and amendment to agreement number 10-14, the joint cooperative agreement for the County City Administrative Office Building. Do I have a motion to approve?
Mr. Chair, before we do that, and I know we do the motion right away, and I'm asking this now because I'm going to ask that if we have to have a motion now that we table it, but I'd rather we just didn't address it if that's possible. I did have a conversation with City Manager Paul Brazino. We've agreed that this should be put onto the May Joint Powers Board. There are other changes that need to be made in the agreement. And the city attorney right now is doing a draft on that. Stacy's working on her draft. And that'll go through joint powers and then come back to us as a complete document so that it's not being amended one piece at a time.
Okay.
I'd rather not table it. That's why I said not to address it if we can, only because we don't know when exactly it'll get back here.
We could actually do a motion to table indefinitely because at this particular document, we won't see this again. It will come back as an amendment to the entire Joint Powers Board agreement that was approved back in 2010. So, tabling this indefinitely, it would go away because this is just one piece of the overall document that we're going to be seeing here in the future.
That's fine. Then I'd make a motion to approve.
I would second that.
And then we had to have approval before we could do a table, right?
Right. You have to
No.
vote on that motion first.
And-
With a roll call. I think, don't we? No, you're right. We can move it.
Move approval, and then we'll do a second motion then to table indefinite.
Okay. I have a motion by Commissioner Pierce, second by Commissioner Boersman to approve. Call the
then-
roll, please.
I don't think we don't call the roll on
don't
that.
call the
I make a motion to table indefinitely.
Second.
Now we can vote on that motion to
I have a
table.
motion by Commissioner Bartley and a second by Pierce to table indefinitely. Call the roll, please.
Pierce,
Aye.
Bartley,
Aye.
Krogman,
Aye.
Boersma,
Aye.
Jensen,
Aye.
motion carries.
We have time for one item H, action to approve agreement number 21-60, an application for occupancy of the right-of-way of county highway made by Sioux Valley Energy in Trenton Township. I have a motion approved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Bartley,
Aye.
Krogman,
Aye.
Boersma,
Aye.
Pierce,
Aye.
Jensen,
Aye.
motion carries.
Item I, action to approve agreement number 21-61, an application for occupancy of right-of-way of county highway made by Sioux Valley Energy in Madari Township. Do I have a motion approved?
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Comments? Hearing none, call roll.
Krogman,
Aye.
Boersma,
Aye.
Pierce,
Aye.
Bartley,
Aye.
Jensen,
Aye.
motion carries.
Item J, action to approve agreement number 21-62, an application for occupancy of the right-of-way county highway made by Sioux Valley Energy in Trenton Township.
Move approval.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments? Hearing none, call the roll.
Boersma,
Aye.
Pierce,
Aye.
Bartley,
Aye.
Krogman,
Aye.
Jensen,
Aye.
motion carries.
Okay, it is 9 o'clock. We have action to approve the closure of a portion of 6th Avenue for the Brookings Farmers Market. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments or somebody would like to come forward?
Good morning. My name is Megan Nelson. I'm here representing the farmers market as a board member. And good, hopefully more normal year slated for a May 1st start date. And we do plan to use the entire block as we have in the past. We have several new vendors who have applied this year, as well as many returning. And we are working on planning a strawberry festival, harvest fest, et cetera. We also have some nonprofits involved with horticulture education, math education opportunities, and our free family yoga that we have offered in the past.
Okay. Does any of the commission have any questions?
The road would be blocked from when until when?
8 a.m. to, I think, like 12:30 p.m.
Just on Saturdays, right?
Just on Saturday mornings, yes, correct. Yep, for setup and then quick tear down at noon.
And
It's just-
has anybody had a conversation with Henry Carlson about whether that'd be a problem?
Yes, I brought it up at the last meeting. There was no issues.
No issues. They're not there. Typically, they're on the weekends working. So, and I know the courthouse has already signed off on this as well and is aware that it's happening again.
Okay. Hearing no more, call the roll, please.
Pierce,
Aye.
Bartley,
Aye.
Krogman,
Aye.
Jensen,
Aye.
motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we can go back to regular business. Action to approve agreement number 21-63, an application for occupancy of the right-of-way of county highway made by Sioux Valley Energy in Trenton and Madari Townships.
Move approval. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Bartley,
Aye.
Krogman,
Aye.
Boersma,
Aye.
Pierce,
Aye.
Jensen,
Aye.
motion carries.
Item L, action to approve agreement number 21-64, an agreement for construction between Brookings County, South Dakota and Diamond Surface, Inc. for the 2021 concrete pavement rehabilitation project. I have a motion to approve.
Move approval. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Krogman,
Aye.
Boersma,
Aye.
Pierce,
Aye.
Bartley,
Aye.
Jensen,
Aye.
motion carries.
Item M, action to approve the low bid for bituminous overlay to Bose Construction of Brookings, South Dakota for $377,031. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments? Brian has a question. What section of road is this?
It'd be 32nd Avenue down by, right outside of Bose's plant, just south of the BCOAC. That 2.5 miles.
Okay. Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Boersma,
Aye.
Pierce,
Aye.
Bartley,
Aye.
Krogman,
Aye.
Jensen,
Aye.
motion carries.
Item N, action to approve the low bid for asphalt patching to Dunick Incorporated of Watertown, South Dakota at $92 a ton. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments?
We're gonna be doing some longer patches. There's one stretch up by Hendricks, and then the other ones will be around the county.
Okay. Call the roll, please.
Pierce,
Aye.
Bartley,
Aye.
Krogman,
Aye.
Boersma,
Aye.
Jensen,
Aye.
motion carries.
Item O, action to approve a request to fill vacancy for an equipment operator in the highway department. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move approval. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Comments?
Had a resignation, one of our employees is gonna be going back to school.
Okay. Call the roll, please.
Bartley?
Aye.
Krogman?
Aye.
Boersma?
Aye.
Pierce?
Aye.
Jensen?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, it is 9:05. Resilient Communities Update. We have Nikki Eining of her behavioral from Brookings.
Nikki's not here, but we have others
Sorry.
here.
It took two of us to replace Nikki. So I'm Darla Beal with Brookings County Youth Mentoring Program, and Heidi Gullickson with Brookings Area United Way. And thank you. We're going to be quick, but I'm going to, as you know, last Wednesday, Brookings County was designated as the first community or area in South Dakota as a South Dakota Resilient Communities, and that was by the Center for Prevention of Child Maltreatment. CPCM is a state-funded organization. It arose out of Jolene's Law Task Force, and so it's housed within the USD School of Public Health, and it has a 10-year strategic plan to kind of reduce child maltreatment across the state. So I want to give you a backup to 2018 and tell you how we got involved and were asked to pilot the program. So in 2018, I, Heidi Gullickson, Chad Adamson, and Michelle Vanderweerd from the Brookings School District, and Nikki Eining started meeting monthly. It was just a truly grassroots effort of trying to see what we could do collaboratively to continue to protect our kids in the community and to also increase awareness of the many evidence-based trainings that are free across the state and available. So we began meeting monthly in my office, and we soon realized like this is kind of becoming something. We sponsored a trainer from Minneapolis who came in, and we started calling ourselves social networks. I just want you to know that's not a nonprofit. We don't have a bank account. It's just kind of a name, so it's not affiliated with any one agency because it's truly like a multi-sector collaboration. So in 2019, in the summer, we presented at the CPCM's annual conference. It's a statewide conference. There's usually about 600 to 700 attendees. And we did a panel discussion on some of the things we were doing in our community to kind of work together and collaborate. That caught the attention of CPCM, and then they approached us afterwards and said, we are working on a framework that's based on the CDC's strategies to prevent violence against children. And we need a community who's willing to pilot this and kind of walk through the process, and also a community to help us really build out that framework and the implementation of it. So we said, sure, we will continue volunteering in that capacity. And so we began in 2019 calling together meetings with, I think Dan Nelson was, our state's attorney, was there right from the very beginning and has been supportive and an integral part of our collaboration. We pulled together healthcare, business, nonprofits, education, really multi-sector, and started having conversations and asking, when we compare our community to the CDC's 6 strategies for preventing violence against children, where do we stack up? Like, what are we doing well? What do we still need to do better? How can we collaborate? How can we continue to put the pieces together to provide the best safety net for our kids? And through that process, then, we helped CPCM continue to build out this Resilient Communities South Dakota framework. Now we're at a place, and I'm going to turn it over to Heidi, but we got the award. There is a website now. It's resilientsd.com. And other communities, I know of 4 who are already kind of watching, Watertown, Rapid City, Vermilion, and Huron, and I think maybe Yankton is interested too. So other communities across the state are already starting to engage in this work and are going to be doing this similar work. So turn it to Heidi for kind of what's next as we're in the sustain phase.
So this is where we, again, get to reach out to the community and keep that community engagement going. And so as we received the award last Wednesday, we also encouraged and invited folks and businesses, individuals, organizations to join us as a Brookings County Resilient Motivator. And so really with that, looking to engage people to take some of those trainings to understand what ACEs is and how it literally rewires the brain, and how as a community we can have an impact on that for our children, which then turn into our workforce and our families to create a stable environment. And so within that, we do have it out on our Facebook page where people and, again, organizations, businesses can sign up to be a motivator. We thank Brookings County Commission for signing that and being part of that as well. And so we'll continue to meet quarterly to do some training, to engage, to talk about as a community how we're doing, where we have the gaps, and continue to work towards those different goals and be able to use those evidence-based trainings and opportunities out there. More information is on our Facebook page, and like Darla said, the website is up now as well for people to see more information. It's really, really interesting for someone who did not come from a background of understanding this to be able to get some of these trainings and say, oh, I get it. And so the trainings are available. Most of them are free. And so that's, again, what we're hoping to bring. So we have a community who understands the best ways to move forward and why those are the best ways to move forward, so we can all come around those children and families.
I want to add just one other quick thing. As a group, Social Networks did apply for and get a grant called the DASH Mentor Program, and that's a small monetary stipend, but the biggest portion of that is for the next 10 months. Our Social Networks group is going to be mentored by United Way Worldwide in how to collect data to impact public health. So we're going to be doing some data collection. We're not sure exactly what that looks like, but we think it's going to be around understanding our community's knowledge, attitudes, and practices as it relates to adverse childhood experiences, and what that will do for us as a community. In addition to all the perks of collaborating, it's going to help us collect some data that then we can roll into grants, right, or use for maybe bringing in more resources, but also getting a better understanding of our community and our state. So we're excited about that opportunity. And there is quite a lot of grant dollars out there to prevent violence, but also adverse childhood experiences.
Do you guys have any questions for us? It's a big topic, and we covered it in about 7 minutes. So just do know that we're always available for a phone call, and it really is a collaborative. Social Networks is really just the facilitating team on this, but there had been many months of a lot of people showing up to share how what they do in our community impacts, and being able to already put some new practices into place to better our community through these conversations.
Heidi, maybe you could give us an example of what best practice you've have already instituted.
So I'll give the example. There's two that come to mind quickly, but one of them is as we were going through mandatory reporting and what it means, and who by state law are mandatory reporters and who aren't, and those kind of things. We really talked about adults being in kids' lives and understanding and being able to see things and know what to do if you see something that maybe isn't quite right, but how to make that, how to understand it, and then what to do next. And so Brenda over at Beta was at one of those meetings, and it really clicked that, these Beta bus drivers really get to know the kids. They do a lot of transportation for our young youth to and from school and activities. And so Brenda's like, our drivers should be watching the mandatory reporting training, so they just understand things better. And so that's one of the things that has come out of that. I'll let Darla kind of talk about another program that we worked with the state's attorneys on that has already come to fruition as well.
Yep. So as I said, there's a lot of benefits that just come from collaborating and continuing to meet across sectors in addition to the data. And so one of the things that's already come out of the process is we realized we did not have any training or any treatment for domestic violence perpetrators. And so Dan was at that meeting, as well as our shelter. And the shelter said, we can't do that. By our funding, we can only provide support and training for the victims. And so, maybe Dan, you could probably explain this better, but they've realized that we had those pieces. LSS was already providing a specific domestic violence perpetrator training. It's evidence-based. It's shown to reduce recidivism. And that has now been brought and is starting to be implemented within our court system and within our community. So if you're a domestic violence perpetrator, you're not just sent to general anger management courses, but you're sent specifically to training to intervene for domestic violence perpetrators.
Well, thank you. That gives me a better understanding of where your targets are, so to speak, and that's only 2 of them, so.
All right. Well, we thank you guys for your time and your support. Again, hopefully to keep everybody included, but certainly everyone is welcome to come to those quarterly meetings. And again, feel free to reach out to us for any more information.
I'd like to thank you guys for all you do for the community too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda items, item C is presentation from Holloway Construction. Like, come forward.
I just wanted to point out that I'm bringing Brian here in front of you guys because we're going to be looking at budget. I'm hoping he can find us a way to save some money.
There you go. Brian wanted me to kind of explain to you what
Could,
Holloway...
could you introduce yourself?
Oh, sorry.
And then just kind of.
All right. That better?
Yep.
All right. Brian wanted me to kind of explain to you what Holloway does and what we provide. It's an alternative, if you will, to the design, bid, build process of repairing and replacing your county bridges. We work off of annual bids. Holloway gives annual bids to various counties for equipment and labor. Specialized equipment and labor for bridges, box culverts, about anything to get across the creek on a roadway. That's kind of our specialty. Working off of the annual bid system, I'm a civil engineer, my partner is a civil engineer, our bridge superintendent is a civil engineer. When your guys' engineer shows up on our jobs, we outnumber him. So everything's designed, load rated. Your 404 permits we handle. And in the end, it really looks like any other design, bid, build project. We just don't go through the process per se on each project. We do it annually. We kind of specialize, you know, the smaller structures, what I call smaller structures are 100 feet and less. That's where this system really shines. You've got other programs available to you. They take a lot of time and they are a lot more expensive. I can give you, and we just finished a bridge, a 35-foot bridge in Charles Mix County on concrete abutments, riprap. It is a steel girder modular bridge that True North Steel supplies. They are load rated HL93, which probably doesn't mean much other than Brian won't need to put his posting sign in front of his bridge, you know, with that kind of load rating. It is the current load rating of AASHTO. Took us about 2.5 weeks of the road being closed. Cost was about $185,000. That does not include county support. Like I said, we are specialized bridge equipment as far as dump trucks hauling debris away and bringing backfill type materials in. We rely on the county for that. We rely on the county for road closure and that kind of support. So that number varies from county to county, so I really don't have any idea how they're costing their time into that project, but the materials, equipment, and taxes, I do have a good handle on, and that's about what that cost.
Is it just bridges, or do you do box culverts also?
Yep, box culverts. Actually, I've worked with Brian down in Yankton County with bridges, but we put, I think in 15, 16, and 17, we were putting box culverts in for Dick Burke up here in Brookings. They were under the 20, they weren't structure-sized boxes. But yeah, we were up here putting them in on that same kind of annual bid basis. Brian said a few of you have changed since Dick was here, so he kind of wanted me to explain how it worked.
Yep. Any
So
other
my
questions?
question, start to finish on a project, you know, by the inception to the completion of the project, we're looking at a year, you know?
Or less. Last year in Hand County, we put one together in about 100 days, but that is very, very quick. A year is a good number because you have to get materials, you know, you've got to acquire them, you've got to get your order in so the manufacturer, you know, can get it scheduled in his end. We got to get permits, things like that. So, yeah, a year. A year, and it can happen quicker if it needs to. There are little hiccups in there that can cause, like a historic bridge. I don't know if you guys have run into that up here yet, but it takes a while to get, you got to clear it, clear the history and preserve the history before you get your 404 permit.
So if
We're
we
not in
have,
Topeka Shiner country.
We are,
Oh, are you?
yeah.
Yeah, so those two things can slow it up. That's why inside of a year we can get that. But yeah, threatened and endangered species and historic bridges take a while to get the permitting.
Where are you out of, your company?
My shop is in Parker. My office is in Pierre. All of our work is basically eastern South Dakota. The crew is derived from people out of Pierre and out of the Sioux Falls area.
And I don't quite understand how an annual bid works as opposed to the process that we use normally.
The
So-
design bid build, okay, so the annual bid, you guys go out for annual bids for culverts, things like that, right? Yep. So the bid for labor and equipment for bridges that Holloway would supply works the same way. It is a hourly rate, various pieces of equipment, labor, bridge welders, you know, everything that it would take to build a bridge, and it's good for a year.
And so at the time that the annual bid process takes place,
That's the bid, yep.
and it is just for what you just said, labor, materials, whatever, but we don't say for this project or that project, it's just whatever comes up, you do it for
Right,
that
yep.
rate?
It'd be for, you know, let's just say you had a flood event and there was an emergency up here and we needed to come in and do a lot of repairs. You could just call. It's already, you know, the labor part of that is already bid. The modular steel bridges are bid in Beetle County, Turner County, and Yankton County. The only real difference in the county's bids are whether freight is included, whether it's FOB, the dock in Missoula or Fargo or wherever they're building the bridge, or it's delivered to the site for the price. It's really the only difference in the three annual bids for bridges. The abutment materials are all bid through Beetle County, your pile, your sheeting, your rebar. You usually have annual bids for concrete and the kind of materials that you're consuming, you know, on a yearly basis.
I think what Leanne's getting at is, and now maybe you've changed the practice that you're doing, but if memory serves me correctly, you would give us a not to exceed amount.
Yeah, it's really an estimate, and I try to work everything, you know, not everything, but any kind of little hiccup, because I understand when you're working on the budget, it's a lot better to have a little money left over than to be a little money short. So in my estimate, I give you the estimates for materials, labor, everything to build the bridge, and honestly, I almost always come in under that estimate. That estimate will have hiccups in there. If I do not have any hiccups, I only bill you for the time that it takes.
Did that answer your question, Leanne?
It
Yeah.
does. How does that tie in with the state's requirement on the bridge program?
It would be 100% county funded. It wouldn't go through the bridge program. At this point, we have had, it was an ER project through the state in Hutchinson County that we've done. But most everything is 100% county funded. As far as legal requirements go, it's the exact same as if you, at the end, if you had a bridge built through the big program, the load ratings, all the engineering and everything is the same. I mean, we're all bound by the same rules.
Right, but the only projects you work on are those 100% funded by the county.
Yep, previously, that's the way that has worked. Other than this year, we did complete a bridge in Hutchinson County that was ER funded, and they will be reimbursed by the DOT. And then everything had to go through the DOT and cleared, you know, all the plans, all the abutments, all the load ratings. You know, everything got sent up to them and approved. I actually used to work at the DOT in local government, so I'm very familiar with the programs and the processes and what we have to do to be eligible for those kind of things in the future as well. You know, because if you build a bridge and you have Holloway come in and build it, and if for some reason it wasn't eligible, you know, you wouldn't want to do that. I wouldn't want to sell that service to you. So yeah, it's all.
Typically, we've had Holloway before on some of our small structures, like a couple we do every year. If we had an emergency bridge that all of a sudden popped up, failed, that needed to be replaced, called them, got into their schedule, accepted their hourly rate out of, you said you had 4 counties you have hourly rates in right now?
Oh, probably does. And I think in the past, Brookings has gone off of Spink.
No.
Yep.
And Brian bids his bridge materials every year, so you can get the materials, so.
Right. Yep.
So what you'd have in mind if we had this kind of arrangement is that they would be doing the small structures that your team normally does, or?
I would be looking at these structures, you know, 20 feet to, say, that 100-foot mark, you know, that we would fund on our own. You know, coming down the pipe here, a lot of our funding has gone towards larger Sioux River bridges. Well, we're doing one bridge now. In the future, we might be looking at doing, you know, 3, 4 to match that money that we're putting towards that one structure now. So if we're going to continue our, you know, funding commitment for our bridges, you know, this might be an avenue to get more done.
And yeah, the other thing I should add is when you do more than one bridge, mobilization saves a lot of money. We've done that for Dick in the past up here in Brookings, had 2 box culverts that were about a mile apart. Well, when you can lower the boom of your crane and drive to the next job, you're back to work in 20 minutes. That saves a lot of money. So there are, you know, savings that way too.
Mm-hmm. So one thing that I did want to point out too, and I believe Merle's doing it in Beetle County, is we've received preliminary engineering grants for several of these structures that are on township roads. But that information can be used by Holloway, you know, in order to size that structure and to back that. You know, so the money that we're spending for the preliminary engineering isn't going to waste. It would be used for that.
Yeah, if you want to, especially when you switch from a bridge to a box culvert, hydraulics are very important. You know, you take that open channel away and plug it. And yeah, hydraulics are very important.
Okay.
So again, Brian, as we look at the things that we've already had engineering done on, if we went with an open bid, an annual bid, that will all work with that annual bid process.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, the hourly rate and so forth. Obviously, you wouldn't have to do the engineering at that point, so it should be less expensive.
No,
at that
your
point.
preliminary engineering on your creek would be done, and all the engineering on the bridge is done by the supplier, and all the engineering on the abutments is done by Holloway.
All right, so bridges where we don't have that completed, we would go then to the annual bid for you to do the engineering, rather than
Well,
what we've
what I
used
would
in the
do is I
past.
would get with Brian, we would determine, okay, do we need hydraulics here? What are we gonna replace it with? If it's a identical bridge and you're not really changing anything, I wonder if you really need hydraulics.
Well, if it wasn't hydraulics, if it was just general engineering for the bridge itself, if we don't have that bridge on our plan right now, let's just say it's an open deal, but we're gonna get a hold of an engineering firm to run the engineering on it, your open bid would cover that. Annual bid to do that preliminary
I
engineering.
might not be understanding you.
That's good, I don't either.
The engineering that Holloway provides is structure engineering.
Right.
Okay. The creek engineering, Holloway has provided that before. Normally I outsource that. It requires a survey crew, things like that. I have we're structural guys.
So the things we've had engineered up to this point don't include the structural engineering, just the riverbed, so to speak?
They come up with a suggestion in that preliminary engineering, but that's this information that
Right,
they would use to match that, structure.
your preliminary is probably H&H's, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and with that hydraulics and hydrology study, they will give you a suggested span length that this bridge will allow whatever event that they're looking at, through the bridge, and it'll give you an overtopping frequency and all that. That's the preliminary engineering that you currently have from the big program.
But you guys wouldn't provide that, is I think what Mike is asking.
Not normally. On a special
Okay.
basis, we can, but
So
I hire
we're
it
still
out.
we're still going to go out and get that preliminary stuff done.
Right.
There. All right,
Right.
So, on a percentage off the wall basis, if this is more efficient, less expensive, is it 5%, 10%? What kind of savings could we
It varies,
get over our annual
basically
build?
on your bridges. So I think you guys just did last year a 65-foot double T through the big program, right? Or was it 2 years ago?
2 years ago.
What'd that run you?
That was 660,000, I believe.
Okay, so the 90-footer that I put in Hutchinson County this year was not 400,000. So,
We're talking the Basin Bridge.
Right.
yeah, when you would step down to 65 foot, if Holloway were to come in and do a 65-foot double T, concrete abutments,
Yes.
yep, on concrete abutments, 65-foot bridge is probably going to run you about $240,000 to $250,000 minus your county support, not including the county support of the road closure and the hauling of the debris and the delivery of the backfill material.
I guess the question goes to Brian. What would you expect that we would save going with an annual bid versus bidding each project?
Well, just listening to that, it's also going to be based off structure per structure, but,
Right.
I honestly think we could be looking at saving a third, if not more.
Right, yeah.
30%.
And that's 2 years ago prices that we're comparing against, what would be current today. I really don't keep up on the DOT and their big stuff, so I don't know what they've been getting for prices, but I do know they've been getting more and more expensive as time goes. They've got these riprap requirements that they're riprapping face to face and all that. And,
So I understand that, a third, that's significant. The other thing I want to understand is the efficiency of an annual bid versus us going through the bid process on every one of them. Obviously, there's some efficiencies there, Brian, on your, as far as getting construction, getting things done.
Well,
I mean, you're going to be supplying materials, you're going to be doing road closures, you're going to be doing some other things you aren't doing now with some of those projects. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right, so efficiency in your department changes somewhat when a project comes along. If it's only one or two a year, that's not a real big issue, I'm sure, but are you looking at the efficiencies in your department too? They don't really necessarily cost you less, it costs you a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, as far as getting the few things that he would need to get started, it's, you know, that's just minimal, but, the support that he'd need, I wouldn't foresee our department have any more of an issue than, you know, we've helped out on even the big projects, that we've done. It's on an as-needed basis, and, you know, my previous work with Holloway is usually we get a notice, you know, well before, you know, he needs the material so we can plan for it, and it's basically a horse apiece. You know, my guys are doing one thing or they're doing the other, and it's just planning and communication.
Yeah, it's not a lot of, it's pretty low. Holloway's pretty low maintenance, I would say, on the request side.
So today's presentation, I think I got my questions answered. I'm sure the rest of you have some more.
I got a question. So if I'm just looking at how we would move forward if we wanted to do something. So would we identify in our budget coming up here that we want to do 7 structures, and, you know, next year? And previously we would identify those and you'd get them done. Is that something we would turn around and say, you know what, we're gonna do a yearly annual with Holloway, and these are the 7 structures we want you to complete in the next, you know, year? Is that how we would move forward with that, or is it just saying?
Essentially, I mean, you know, just throwing a number out there of 7. You know, I'm not looking at that vast amount of scale, but it's something that we can look at.
Well, you know, again, we've tried to do some of the small structures to get caught up, you know, our worst ones, and they've been, you know, $75,000 to $100,000 structures and stuff like that, and we've kind of put money away for that and kind of tried to pick away at some of the worst ones and get going on those. Is that something we would do with Holloway?
Correct.
If we wanted to do 2 or 3, or if we, you know.
Yep. That's what I'd be looking at doing. That's why I wanted to bring Brian in front of you guys to get these questions answered. I know that I worked with him extensively in the past. Seems like we got a fairly good relationship. I just wanted to make sure you guys knew the metrics of it. You know, inception of the project compared to the end of the project is a lot less time compared to working with the DOT. Inception of the project might be 3 years before you even see construction, where inception of the project here might be a year.
Yeah.
I mean, Holloway can also be used if we have a bridge that's damaged, need to come in, need some pile fixed. They have the equipment and we would have, Brian would take their annual bid for their hourly rate. We can schedule with them. They can come in and do their thing and we pay them their.
Yeah, right. You wouldn't necessarily have to identify what Holloway is going to do in that year, just like you really don't identify pipe, you know. I mean, you've got an annual bid and you pull off it as you need. Holloway bid really works the same way. If you did have 7 bridges, how it would work is me and Brian would get together, we'd go out and look at them. I would give him an estimate it'd be really 7 estimates. He'd bring that to you guys and, you know, you'd have a decision to make.
And I guess the flip side for me, from I think maybe what you, Ryan, just asked was, I can't think of, maybe there was one bridge since I've been on the commission that we paid for entirely. I'm not sure. I think there was one, but not more than that. Usually we have a grant, unless it's a small structure. And the small structures, Brian's team, they do those, okay? But you're talking about something that's kind of a in-between the small structures, but some in-between ones. And I just have a question on why we wouldn't be asking for grants on that. And this isn't necessarily have to do with you. That's just a question I've got, is how that works. And then are we required? So let's say you do a bid for this amount of labor and this amount of material, and we don't have that emergency that comes up that Larry's talking about. Do we have to use the full bid amount, or we can, if we come in with less work than that, is that a problem for you?
No. It's really not, like I say, it's not a bid amount. It's because the bid was for hourly. I give you an overall project estimated cost, And like I said, almost always I come in underneath that. I don't, it's really not a bid at that point. The bid is hourly. And it's an estimated overall project cost. I've been kicking around county bridges in South Dakota for about 25 years. We're pretty good at our estimates and pretty good at understanding the county system and how it all works.
I'll toss another egg out here real quick.
Okay.
Obviously, the legislature passed a bill that appropriated funds that go to counties and townships for road bridge repair, I think and culvert repair. That would be some sort of a grant, but that's still 100% paid by the county. They don't pay you, they're going to pay us or reimburse us, and we're still going to pay you. So that's somewhat exempt as far as the grant process, because that's coming down the pipe here in the next few months, where we're going to have to either make some applications for that or not. It's like $6 million.
$6 million, and I think they allocated half of that to inventory, though.
Inventory, okay.
Yeah.
So,
Is that right?
That doesn't go real far.
No,
all the
$3 million in
townships.
the whole state's not going to go very far. But
No.
I think they're going to put together a committee to review that $3 million inventory number, because that's half of the funding. You're not going to get much on the road when you spend $3 million on inventory.
So they're going to be buying culverts, basically, for the inventory.
Yep.
Okay. I just know that that'd be an impact somewhere. Whether it impacts us or not, or helps us or not, I don't know.
Right. Yeah, but it would certainly be eligible when that grant money comes down. Yeah, I mean, it's
Right. Well, when you say 100% paid by the county, well, this would we can still apply for those grants.
Yeah.
That's what I'm about.
I mean, even when it's at this point of the game, the big program and 100% paid by the county are honestly the same flavor of funding.
Yeah.
It's all state funds, and the rules, the state laws are all the same. We don't have the federal flavor in there, even on the big. We do a lot of that federal things in the big, but I mean, honestly,
I suppose they assume the big is expending federal funds that they got. So
yeah. Well, the DOT knows that federal system.
Yeah.
And they know their system, and the state system and the county system, as you guys know, is far different. They build for 500-year events, on their bridges and things like that. And a lot of times we build for the 10 at the county level.
So to go back to somewhat what Commissioner Krogman was alluding to, how do we move forward with this if we want to do this? Is this an annual bid? Are other people going to bid this besides Holloway Construction?
There used to be, so Holloway Construction has been around since 1953, and I think since 1965 there has not been another.
Okay, so we're
bidder.
pretty secure in that particular.
Yeah.
So administratively, at this point in time, Brian needs some assurance from us to go with an annual bid. Are we looking at an annual bid for next year?
Correct.
Or not
Yeah,
this year? So it'd be part of your budget presentation to go with this.
Yeah.
And-
I'm just wanting to get Brian in front of you guys
Sure,
before
sure, I
we
understand
sit
that.
down at budget time.
Just looking administratively how we have to move forward, and I think I got my question answered. Thank you.
Right. And if anything came up, you can always go off of another county's bid. I could have Mike from Yankton County send Brian all his stuff. He could bring it to you and adopt it if, it was an emergency situation. He didn't have a bid.
We currently do this with Prusmans and Bowes. We get their hourly rate for their equipment. They come in and do these projects. The county buys all the materials. We just have hiring their company come in and do the labor.
Right. Same thing.
But at budget time, Leanne, to make sure that your question is answered, it would be for those structures that would be, larger than that I felt comfortable handling. And, not to where it would be so cost effective, so to speak, as far as it getting longer in length. It would be those in-between structures that I don't have the equipment to handle, or, anybody else around here, but they would.
So for this budget cycle that we're just going into, if I recall correctly, that for that size structure, that was on the bridge report from 2019. So you'd be working off that report for trying to come up with
Trying to come up with some alternatives You know, I've gotten the preliminary engineering grants for them, but now it's got to the point to where we're got to look at construction. And applying for the grants, and we've been very successful in the grants, but I feel that we could get some projects done more expedited, so to speak, than if we would get a grant for them, and we'd probably be looking at spending similar amounts of money
Yeah, or less.
or less.
How long, I just have to ask this, I'm sorry, you guys. How long is the Sinai Bridge that we're doing?
They increased the length from, I believe it's 170 feet to about
So
240
it'd be a bridge
feet.
that's smaller than that we're.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're looking at 240 feet on that one now.
Oh, for the scour requirements?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Moving on to item number 9, Commission Department Directors Report.
Just a few things. I did provide the surplus cash analysis for the general fund for March month end at, we're at 13%. Compared that over our 10-year look back. Average, the 10-year average is 11.4%. So we are a little bit above. March is typically one of our lowest, if not our lowest month, because we've been spending money now for the first quarter, but we haven't, our influx of our first round of tax revenue comes in April. So you'll see that go back up here in April. There are a couple public notices regarding TIF districts in the city of Volga that were included in my packet. And then the commission is given, they're okay for county employees to volunteer at the pod events through April. As you know, we're moving into May and there are some additional pod events happening. Mostly, I think there's one more first shot round this week, and then there are going to be several where people come back and get their second shots. Is the commission still comfortable with allowing county employees to volunteer out there and not use any of their leave? Is that okay?
Fine.
Okay. I don't know. I think I've heard that this week the numbers are kind of down for attendance out there. There's still plenty of slots left for the pod this Thursday for the first round of shots. If anyone is interested, they can just go on and do the sign up on the Brookings Health website. So I don't know what that will look like moving into the future, if those will continue to happen or not. But discussion on some township funding. We do have those township grant dollars budgeted once again. It's usually about this time where I get that first letter out. Just thinking, getting your opinion, the board's opinion, is it okay if I find a time for Commissioners Jensen and Krogman? We could get together and discuss what that looks like. I know I had sent some information or kind of a question-seeking letter out to the townships to can look beyond culvert projects and see if there was any interest. And I really didn't get, I got some information back from a couple of townships, but really that was about it. So I want to sit down and we can kind of cash through what that looks like and then bring something back to the commission for you. But I'll find a time to get together with Brian and Larry and Ryan.
As a little bit of a follow-up to that, going back to the $6 million the state authorized for the letter you got from First District offering to locations and a number of culverts in each county. I don't know that we ever got a complete list of culverts from our townships, so would this be a good time as we talk to them about improvements, whether it be road grade or culverts, that we get a buy-in that they'll use First District's program. It'll cost some money, but it's pretty cost effective. And we'll have that catalog. Is this a good time to press them to move forward with that?
So statutorily, township supervisors are required to maintain their culverts.
Yep.
So I would think that they would have some sort of inventory at some level, but I don't know that that's ever been shared fully with the county. I am on that committee that's looking at House Bill 1259. The first $3 million, although we don't know how it is going to be allocated, we don't know. Basically, we're asking a lot of questions yet on that. The first $3 million is to do that inventory. I believe they tried to do an inventory, I think it was maybe 2016. I looked at the list. Trenton Township was the only township in Brookings County that submitted information on culverts during that statewide study of several years ago. So it's lacking, and so that needs to be done so we can, that whole process is kind of yet to be determined. But the first $3 million of that $6 million is going to go towards getting that inventory from the townships. So that is actually something that I asked for townships to turn in with annual paperwork, and I didn't get much of a response on that. So, but that was just on a voluntary basis, so.
I guess what I'm looking for is a little bit more pressure from us on them to get that completed, and if that involves getting First District involved with their program to mark and GIS each of those culverts so we know exactly where they're at, and get an inventory of their condition on each one of those GIS locations seems efficient to me to move forward with any of these requests for money. That seems to be one of the first steps, is you better have a GIS almost inventory of where these things are. So
right.
Maybe when you have that meeting with them, you stress that importance of trying to get that completed, or even
Right.
have somebody from First District come down and talk to them sometimes.
Yeah,
And that was one of the recommendations from the Drainage Committee on our report, is that we needed to have that culvert inventory. I think Brian might have more of those things, but
He's gone.
than what we used to have, but.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
believe, and Dan maybe could tell us this more, I believe there's a statute that requires the townships to maintain that, I think.
So we'll get together and discuss that and kind of loop in that discussion on that House bill and how that might provide some incentive to get that work done. But then also, you know, what do we want to spend our $100,000 this year in funding on? Is it strictly still culverts, or if we're going to go out beyond that? I think that's a discussion that we can have in that smaller group and then bring back a recommendation to the full commission. I did also hand out the agenda for the Sioux Valley Commissioners Association quarterly meeting, May 12th. I think the Zoom information is included on that agenda. I believe I have Commissioners Bartley, Krogman, Boersma, and Jensen all attending in person at that meeting. That's on Wednesday, May 12th, up in Watertown. And Commissioner Pierce is going to attend via the Zoom. That Zoom link is really only going to be for the commissioners portion of the meeting. They're not going to have a Zoom link available for the auditor's discussion, the treasurer's discussion, et cetera. So that's what that's for. But I do need to get a hard number for lunch, for RSVPs for lunch. So I'll be working on that, but I think I have that kind of nailed down. But I wanted you to have that agenda in your hands. And the only other thing that I have are some upcoming dates, and the dates still didn't get brought over correctly on there. It's Tuesday, May 11th is our work session. Make sure you have that. I think one says May 11th, one says Wednesday. I don't know. So, but it's Tuesday, May 11th, because of the quarterly meeting that's happening on May 12th. So Tuesday, May 11th, we'll start at 8:30, go until 4:30, 5 o'clock. We'll be next door here at the community room. Then looking out a little bit further, we have the Memorial Day holiday on May 31st, and we did get budget hearings scheduled. We'll start at 8:15. We'll be again in the community room, and that'll go until probably about 4:30-ish or so that day on Thursday, June 24th. So that's all I have, unless you have any questions for me.
Are you anticipating that we will do both mandatory and non-mandatory on one day?
Yes.
We're gonna
Yep,
do
we've
the-
been able to get that done
Okay.
in the last few years, get it done. And whatever if we don't have time, we can put in maybe a little work session at our next one of the July meetings, and discuss it. If it gets to the end of the day and we run out of time, we'll just put it on a regular commission meeting agenda rather than having a special session to do that, so.
Can we go back for just a minute, Stacy? When you said the $100,000, were you talking about our grant program, or are you talking about something that's coming out of that bill?
That's our grant program. We have 100,000 set aside again for townships. And I know there was some discussion on, because we haven't had much for applications from townships last year, we were thinking maybe there's some different types of projects that townships have that they would need assistance with.
How many townships do we have again?
26? 26.
And do we have quite a bit of that money left in our budget this year?
What's that? I can't.
Do we have quite a bit of that money left that we haven't used that we budgeted for this year?
We have all of it for this year yet. We
Yes.
haven't sent out even application requests yet for this year.
The only
Last
reason-
year, we didn't spend it all.
The only
Right.
reason I'm asking that, maybe we could consider a carrot to go along with our stick on the culvert inventory and offer, I'm throwing this out, okay, it doesn't necessarily mean anything. Maybe we could offer each township $1,000 to use, to spend on their inventory preparation for that bill and for the stuff that we need for our drainage stuff. Maybe we give some kind of incentive. I just pulled that number out of the air, but that might be something we should consider.
It's something that we can discuss amongst the small group and bring back. So, and just a reminder, lastly, to 1 o'clock this afternoon, you'll reconvene as the Board of Equalization here in the chambers to handle one additional appeal, and then there's one correction as well that got added, but just that's should be able to be handled fairly quickly this afternoon, starting at 1 o'clock.
Okay, State's Attorney's Office report.
Commerce is hosting a panel on marijuana legalization. It starts at 11:30 this morning. I'm going to be one of the panelists. I think it's Tim Reed, Paul Brasino, myself, and I think there's a fourth panelist. But medical marijuana is going to be legal on July 1st. It's a little scary, the lack of framework that is in place currently to accommodate this. I mean, the city and the county are going to have to enact ordinances that regulate the time, place, and manner of dispensing marijuana. And there's going to be a fee. The statute talks about that fee being a reasonable amount, but what that is, I think is probably still up for discussion. Whether or not that is just within the city or if it's a rural dispensary. I mean, some of these questions I think probably need to be answered by the state. I know Leanne and I have talked about that. There was that first district meeting. There wasn't a lot of guidance. They were waiting on guidance from the state Department of Health as to what this looks like. There's not going to be a special session. There's not going to be any compromises between the Senate and the governor's office, because the Senate had said that the only way we're going to push back medical marijuana is if you legalize recreation in an amount of 1 ounce or less. And the governor's office isn't willing to budge on that. So we're left with medical marijuana being legalized on July 1st, but there's not a lot of framework in place to accommodate that. And so what it is if you get a prescription from a medical provider for one of the conditions that is listed in statute, you're able to possess up to 3 ounces. And then, there's some regulations that go into that. And we're going to have our, some work cut out for us between now and July 1st as to what that looks like in Brookings County. I'm going to be talking more about the criminal side of it And I think Brasino and some of the other panelists are going to be talking a little bit more about what that means for potential businesses moving into Brookings to sell those that have a prescription for marijuana. So should be an interesting panel, but yeah, that starts at 11:30 today.
Dan, as a follow-up to that, it's not just businesses that'll come in and be a dispensary, so to speak, for medical marijuana, but it's also the manufacturer of the product then becomes legal because of this. And our zoning and the city zoning does not address any locations for those dispensaries in the county. I'll just pick on the county, not the city, but we have no zoning areas that, I mean, we could put it, we could decide, and we need to make that decision rather quickly, so hopefully that'll come up in the panel discussion more so than the legal, which is your area. But we've got not only the dispensaries, but the
growers.
The growers and the testing facilities for this particular product has to go through extensive testing on its THC content or whatever. So, people are looking for locations to put testing laboratories, and of course, whoever gets there first hopefully gets all the business, and we don't have 20 of them want to be testing laboratories in town. The same way with dispensaries, we want to follow the lead of the city, who will then obviously put it in their ordinances. Is it going to be, as First District suggested, following liquor laws, liquor licensing, costs for liquor licensing, costs for the counties? There's probably no limit on the number of dispensaries like there is for alcohol licenses, but do we want to look at anything on those areas on the county level of limited number of dispensaries in the county or limited number of manufacturing facilities, and what zone do they go in? Obviously, it goes into ag, which we have the ag in the city, very little ag. Any thoughts on any of those? It's still pretty much up in the air then.
It is. It
Those
is.
are all things that I know will affect us on the county level, is licensing and locations and manufacturing.
Well, right, so the licensing, the fees associated with that, the time, place, and manner of when someone can go to one of these dispensaries, how much, they're only able to get up to 3 ounces, and they're only able to get it, I think, within a certain time period. So if you have your prescription filled, there's so many days you have to wait before you can ask for more for that prescription. So, I mean, there's some limits there. But did the Counties Association conference address any of this?
No, there's
That's
kind of
just-
waiting.
That's bizarre.
Pretty much everybody who's put their hands up, so what do you want us to do? If you take Brookings County, we have all the smaller municipalities will have to come up with their own rules and regulations as far as their municipalities, but on the countywide level, in particular for growers, I think is an issue we're going to have to wrestle with.
Yeah, and so I think what I'll do is I think we probably need to do some research into some of these states that do have legalization and see what they've done on the county level, see what a reasonable fee is to obtain a license, both to sell but then to grow within that county. And then this time, place, and manner, that's pretty entails. And so I think we probably need more guidance. But it's going to be a checkerboard approach. I mean, you're going to have different commissions and different municipalities all doing something different from one another, which is going to make it a little bit more difficult. So
I just look at Brookings County, there's one thing with your ordinances on the legality side of it, and the second one in planning and zoning. Where are we going to put them or allow them to be?
Yeah, and one of the things that I've talked about in the past, but there's a provision in IM 26, and it's in statute now, or it will be in statute come July 1st. But if you're picked up with marijuana and you don't have a prescription, you can go ask the doctor to give you a retroactive prescription that would cover you had you asked for it prior to the arrest. And so the county would be on the hook to pay for an expert or a doctor if it's a person who's being charged and they're indigent, to have that doctor come into court and say that, well, if this person had asked prior to his arrest, I would have given him a prescription. Because if you can prove that, then you're prohibited from being prosecuted. So, that's one kind of a backdoor way of legalization, because then our office is going to get tied up in litigation if we pursue some of these marijuana cases, because all of the people that are being charged with marijuana, they're going to go out and find a doctor who's going to come in and say that, well, had they asked for a prescription, I would have given it to them. And so they got a little sneaky there with IM26. And I think part of that was to, in a roundabout way, legalize recreation, because they know that the state's attorney's office, law enforcement, they don't have the resources to fight this in court when the county's shelling out hundreds of dollars per hour to have these doctors come in and say, well, this guy has or this gal has a condition that would allow them to have a medical marijuana. Does that make sense? So it's, yeah, the fun starts July 1st. So that's kind of where we're at.
Well, then what I've heard is we need to have something in place by July 1st.
Right.
So otherwise it's just wide open. And so we need to do something by then, or you can put a moratorium on it to.
No,
later.
Ben and I will try to get the county something to enact so we can do the first and second reading prior to July 1st in terms of like an ordinance. You know, the zoning in terms of like where it's going to be grown on the rural side of it, I assume it'll just be considered ag, but we'll have to look into all that. But we'll try to get the commission something. What would be the first and second readings?
You got 60 days before.
Yeah, so I think we would have to have the first reading of an ordinance at the second meeting in May. Well, no, if it's going, but then it has to go into effect by July 1.
Yeah.
So it's 20 days after publication. I need something by next May 4th.
Okay.
And Dan, when you bring that to us,
60 days.
will you bring with you or send it out in advance the statute that gives us the authority to do what we say we're going to do?
34-20G.
34-20
G.
G?
It's in the SDCLs right now.
Okay.
And they got it in parentheses, will take effect July 1st. But yeah, 34-20G is the entire SDCL for IM26.
And I guess what I'm asking is, in addition, we've got, and this came up when we looked at mask ordinances and stuff, we have a list in the statute that deals with county commissions that says, these are the things that we have the power to do, to regulate, to handle. And does this kind of thing fall within something there?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
You know, they talk about localities and kind of, it's not clear in that particular portion or in IM26 as to what is in the city's purview as compared to the counties. And so I think that's going to be problematic.
And that's where the lawsuits are going to come in.
Well, right. And so it's like this within city limits, joint jurisdiction, and then rural. I would imagine that that's probably the better way to do it. But
And the joint jurisdiction area is going to be particularly, in my opinion, vulnerable during this because we are not very nimble when it comes to zoning regulations in the joint jurisdiction because we do our joint meetings and, so that might be something that we should start working with Bob on sooner rather than later and the city.
Then how about your small communities? I mean, that's another issue. That's all we have, Dan?
that's it.
You got sick. Get this going.
Right.
So. All right. Move on to commission reports. Commissioner Pierce.
So I serve on the City Planning and Zoning Board, and we had our meeting that was a joint jurisdiction zoning issue that we approved here today, but the City Planning and Zoning Board and the County Planning and Zoning Board met jointly as required by statute for purposes of changing the zoning rule on that parcel of real estate. And that is probably what we would need to do with any of these marijuana type things that would be in the joint jurisdiction area. And that is a much harder thing to get scheduled because we have the two different boards. So just, it's a very interesting process when we do that. Also on April 6th, I attended the Madari Township Drainage Meeting, and where the report came back, Bob sent out, I think it was yesterday, the report as edited, and eventually it's going to make its way here on some recommendations for what we should be doing in Madari Township. On April 13th, I attended the county equalization boards with the rest of you. I attended the post-legislative luncheon by Zoom on the 14th of April, which David Owen, as always, was interesting in his observations as what happened with the legislature this year. On April 15th, I met with Bart Sweeby and the Department of Corrections representatives that were here to do their, I think it's their 3-year review of our operation over at the jail. But the reason I was there was not for that. They also, we had asked for a reach out from DOC on what we're doing with juveniles in our remodeled jail. And we went through those plans. We came up with some ideas. I came away from that meeting feeling really good about the possibilities for what we can do with our juveniles. The people from DOC, they were going to go back and talk to their supervisors, and we think we have a better plan that long-term will help the county and help juveniles in the county. And I won't go into details because we don't know if that'll all get approved yet, but it was a very good meeting. It was great. And that would be all I have to report.
Commissioner Bartley.
At the planning and zoning meeting also, plus a joint meeting that Commissioner Pierce has referred to. It was difficult during COVID. We didn't have any meetings for over a year with the joint ones for, we have a joint jurisdictional rewrite that is, as you said, it's been going on a couple of years now, so we haven't gotten that finished yet. So we're going to have to push on some of this stuff separately, I guess. 13th, the Equalization Board, County Equalization Board, which will continue this afternoon at 1 o'clock. The 19th, did the interviews with the Samara Avenue proposals. We got through that, and that completes my report.
Mr. Krogman.
Yeah. Boards with all of you, and on the Cities Award presentation, and that's all I have.
Commissioner Boersma.
Equalization boards, 14th, the Resilient Communities presentation, and then last night on the 19th, we had a Brookings Behavioral Health and Wellness Board meeting. We should probably all be expecting to see a request for Brookings Behavioral Health and Wellness to provide an annual report to kind of give us all an update on the status of the growth of that agency from roughly 2018 to present, sometime between now and June, I would estimate. Pretty great progress, and so it'll be fun to see that report for the entire commission. That's my report.
Okay, on the 7th, action meeting along with Brian over in Elkton on their project over there. On the 8th, attended the jail meeting in the morning there and got an update on their progress. On the 13th, we had our tax appeals meeting here at the City County building. As I was walking out that day, the highway department was opening up the asphalt bids for the year, so I stopped and sat in on that. On the 14th, I attended the Community Resilient Award, very well attended and very informative. At 1 o'clock that day, we did the interviews from the Samara Avenue project over in Volga, and that's all I have. Includes a move on to item number 12, executive session. In accordance with South Dakota Codified Law 1-25-2, parentheses 1 and 4, personnel and contract negotiations. Do I have a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Would you call the roll, please?
Pierce.
Aye.
Bartley.
Aye.
Krogman.
Aye.
Boersma,
Aye.
Jensen,
Aye.
motion carries.
Take a brief break and meet.
Stacy, will you just call me back when you guys are ready?
Yes,